Good evening to you. It's Thursday night, and I, Nick Watts, am having a look through the Premier League coupon once again. I'm trying to get a bit of form going after a rough few weeks. Just 1 out of 3 last time around. Bit frustrating, but thanks to Everton for bailing me out once again and avoiding the dead rubber of a week. I've got 3 more bets here, and I'm kind of hopeful that they'll get me back on track. I wouldn't say it was my absolute favourite coupon of the season, but then confidence is a little lower than perhaps it's been at different parts of the season. But we plough on, and I'm going to my first bet straight away here with West Ham, Newcastle. Loads of issues on display here. Not all of them Big Sam, but he does make up a fair proportion of them. Obviously, Newcastle fans not too fond of him after his spell at the club that didn't go so well. West Ham fans probably slightly more fond of him than they were last week after beating Cardiff. Certainly, I would have thought of the 3 games, FA Cup, League Cup, and and League game. That was the game they would have chosen to win if you'd offered them only one of those 3. Alan Pardew, of course, also part of this kind of bizarre big reunion style event, going back to his old club. A few familiar faces amongst the players, of course, as well, and Kevin Nolan, Andy Carroll, etc. So lots to kind of change the way maybe the form book reads, or just twist things a little bit. But my feeling is that there's going to be goals in this game. Like last week, West Ham probably are a bit too big. They're kind of around 2-1. Newcastle don't typically do that great in London. Probably improved on that record in the last couple of seasons a little bit, but they failed to score in the last 3 games against West Ham. Despite that fact, and the fact, of course, they're on a bit of a barren run at the moment. They've gone 3 games without a goal. And also the fact that I backed over 2.5 goals in this game, in the reverse fixture, I should say, earlier in the season, and that didn't come off. In fact, I don't even think there was over 2.5 shots on target, let alone goals. But I'm refusing to learn my lesson because there's plenty of stats here that back up the idea that there's going to be 3 or more goals here. And surely Newcastle, who scored 5 last time they did score a goal in a match, are due a bit of a goal feast as a result. Just looking at the basics, 60% of West Ham home games, 70% of Newcastle away games have paid over 2.5 goals this season. That's quite appealing in itself. Then you look at the fact that West Ham's defence been ravaged by injury, as I've talked about many times, as many people have talked about many times, quite frankly, this season. Only Fulham have actually conceded more goals over the last 8 games overall, and indeed that's the case for the last 8 home games as well. 7 of the Hammers' 8 meetings with teams in the top 8 have produced 3 or more goals, the exception being that reverse fixture that I mentioned against Newcastle earlier on in the season. And Newcastle, having made 6 trips to sides in the bottom half of the table and had 5 of those pay over 2.5 goals, at 10-11, it just has to be back for me. I might be wrong again, but frankly, that's enough evidence to go with. Second game then is Man City Cardiff. I guess it's just another normal week for Man City, battering team after team at the Etihad. Incredible, really. I read something on Twitter, I'm not 100% sure if it's accurate, but that apparently City only need 1 more goal to become the first team to score 100 times before January 31st in a season, which is pretty impressive stuff, has to be said. They'll obviously get that record. They're playing Cardiff at home this weekend, and while you could think back to tail end of December when Palace manfully stood up to them and only lost 1-0, perhaps unlucky to lose 1-0, the vast majority of teams have been taken apart at this stadium. And with the results more recently against West Ham and Blackburn, you just feel like that's pretty standard for City. It's an anomaly itself when they failed to score those big goals. The only way I could find anywhere to even be remotely with Man City was the win both halves market. They're so short in every other market. that was the one I had a look at. And you can't really blame the bookies for that. I don't think they want to take any money on Man City at home, do they? Interestingly though, it was Paddy Power offering 225 to 1 that Cardiff could win both halves. And while that's got to be the better value of the two sides to this market, I thought the fact that you could get even money in some other places for City to win both halves was pretty appealing. 6 of their 10 home wins have paid out on that market. I'm actually surprised it's not more, to be honest, some of the scorelines they've had, of course. But nonetheless, it feels pretty likely against a Cardiff side who are certainly pretty shoddy in the first half. They're bottom of the half-time table. They've won 1, drawn 11, lost 9. Of course, City have to actually score more goals than them in both halves, but I just can't see anything but a comfortable win. And I suppose the only thing we've got to hope is that City aren't 5-0 up at half-time and kind of coast through to the final whistle. So not my favourite We Love Betting pick ever, admittedly, but it was a way to be with City in a game they should win comfortably. City to win both halves at evens. On to the final one then, and it's Liverpool Villa, the 5:30 kickoff. Interesting one this, and there was kind of two options I felt with this. But first of all, I think I should probably pay some due tributes to Liverpool this season. I've talked a lot about how Arsenal can win the league just if they beat the teams that they should, and Liverpool have got to fall into that bracket so far this season, especially when you consider in the last 2-3 years it's been so easy to take them on and do well against the bookies, or at least the exchanges, by laying them week in, week out. They were too short. These days they're still as short as ever, but they're actually kind of justifying these prices with some of the form that they're showing. They've won 9, lost 1 at home. They've won 7 of those 9 by 2 clear goals at least, and 10 of their last 11 home wins have been half-time and full-time wins. It's a shame in a way because Liverpool -1 half-time, full-time, and of course to win the game are all way too short. You want to back Luis Suarez to score a goal? Well, I think you can get 4-11 or something appalling like that. So it's a question of how on earth do you find value in this one. And actually it's with Villa. Villa away from home, they're not a bad side. As we said, they've got this appalling home record, but they're 8th in the away standings compared to 19th in the home standings. It's a real oddity about them, and it was something that happened last season as well, so it's no fluke in that sense. Their away record's actually as good as Liverpool's, and they've played a game less. They've actually got a decent record at Anfield too of late. The last 4 visits they've won 2, drawn 1 and lost 1. They've only been beaten by 2 or more goals once this season, and that was a 2-0 defeat. They've never been beaten this season so far by more than 2 goals when on their travels, and actually only Everton have conceded fewer goals away from home than Aston Villa as well. So there's a lot to be said for the 13-10 for Aston Villa plus 2 goals, despite the fact Liverpool have been rampant at home. There's a lot going for that, but I'm going a slightly different direction. I'm going both teams to score because I just feel like it's a bit of a gamble to take on Liverpool and Suarez, of course, as well, at a time when my form isn't particularly spectacular. For me, the safer play is the 11-10 for both teams to score. Always, I think it's a big price for both teams to score if it's odds against, to be honest. The Villa, of course, scored 3 at Arsenal. They scored 3 at Southampton as well. They scored at Chelsea. And when you look at the sort of teams that have scored against Liverpool this season at Anfield, albeit some of them on the end of some thrashings, West Brom, Norwich, West Ham, Cardiff and Crystal Palace have all managed to register there. And with that in mind, I'm going for the 11-10 for both teams to score. Quick recap then before I hit the 10-minute mark. It's West Ham Newcastle over 2.5 goals at 10-11. I've got Man City to beat Cardiff in both halves, even money, and I've got 11-10 for both teams to score in Aston Villa against Liverpool. Good luck, everyone.